I'm really delighted to be with you tonight and to welcome Meredith Bronk as our speaker, our guest speaker. Meredith is the CEO of Open Systems Technology and has been with the company since 1998. She understands the needs of a dynamic, growing organization and leverages her strong leadership capabilities to bring creative solutions to clients while maintaining a strong organizational culture. It is with this vision and passion and empathy that she brings to leading both OST and truly being an incredible leader in our community. In addition to her earning her bachelor's degree from Alma College, Meredith earned her MBA from Notre Dame's Mendoza College of Business in 2014. Her career started in accounting, but her compassion and insight quickly led her into project management, recruitment, and human resources. She joined OST as a project manager and was promoted to the Chief Operating Officer. She did that work for several years and then was named President and CEO. Her diverse experience has created a very unique combination of strong analytical and interpersonal skills. Meredith's servant attitude and commitment to the success of others is an excellent representation of OST's dedication to its employees and customers. In addition, Meredith serves on many professional boards in our community, including the Economic Club of Grand Rapids, the Grand Rapids Area Chamber of Commerce, United Bank of Michigan, and Secure Alarm Systems. Meredith is also married with 3 amazing daughters. When she is not dedicating her time to OST, she can often be found on the softball diamond teaching girls the fundamentals. She openly shares the lessons that she has learned during her life and her playing career and how they are applicable to work and also to just life in general. So I've had the incredible delight and honor to get to know Meredith over the years. And as I said, she's not only an incredible leader of her organization, she's an incredible leader within our community. And I believe a mentor and an inspiration to many women leaders, especially in technology. So Meredith, thank you for joining us tonight to be our guest speaker.
Wow. Thank you, Rosalynn, for that great introduction, and to Roger and Robin for welcoming me today. I'm excited that so many of you have chosen to join. I know Zoom fatigue is real, and I promise I'll do my best not to bore you here this afternoon for just a little while. I encourage Q&A and questions, so if you have some thoughts either that I trigger while I'm talking or just in general that are on your mind about what it means from a leadership perspective, anybody who knows me will tell you I'll answer just about anything if I know the answer to it. So feel free to chime in if there's anything there. I want to start just a little bit with my background. Rosalynn talked a lot about kind of who I am, but just in my words, who I am. I am the CEO, president and CEO of a technology company, a Grand Rapids based and headquartered organization that I've had the joy of helping to grow from 7 employees up to over 300 today. During the course of time that I have been with OST, I met my husband at work. We got married, and I have 3 daughters. They are 17, 19, and 21. So 2 in college right now, one at the University of Michigan who's a freshman and one who's a junior at Loyola University in Chicago. So I've got some kids that are your age that are college students. So kind of get the format that y'all have been living in as well here the last year or so. One of the things that's been interesting, and Roger mentioned liberal arts and liberal arts education. I did get my undergraduate at Alma College, strong liberal arts background. And I didn't know when I graduated if I wanted to go into accounting or marketing or what I wanted to do. So I got my first job in accounting, and that just kind of sprung me into this career opportunity that has led to me standing here today as the CEO of a technology company, a non-technologist CEO of a technology company. Some of those lessons I learned on the softball field had served me well. I did play softball at Alma. But what I want to talk to you about, kind of some of the basis that I come and stand here before you today, and you saw this kind of in some of the materials talking about where I am, was this urging that I got from a professor while I was getting my MBA. I've been with OST forever, since I was 27 years old. And as we were thinking about the succession process when our founding president and CEO was retiring, Dan Beam, who who had been my mentor, when we were thinking about, and he was thinking about retiring, and it was clear that I was going to be his successor, I felt like, because I had grown up inside of OST, that maybe I needed to go back to and get my MBA just to make sure I could kind of polish up on some of those skills that I hadn't had responsibility for, sales and marketing and some things like that, that I just hadn't done in my career at OST. And when I look back on that executive MBA program that I undertook, graduated in 2014, I finished my MBA the same year my oldest daughter, I think, finished 8th grade. So it was like that season of my life as a mother and a working mom and student. But when I reflect back on that season, I think the thing that I learned most that has shaped me and the leader that I am today came not from a statistics class or a marketing class, but instead came from this professor that I have named Leo Burke. And he was teaching an ethics and leadership class at Notre Dame as part of the curriculum. And it was one of our very last classes that we had together as students. And one of the things that he posed to us as we were standing there or sitting there kind of in that classroom was he put some statistics up. And he said to us in that moment on world issues, 820 million people around the world don't have enough food to eat. 844 million people lack access to fresh drinking water. And he challenged us in that moment and in that class to say, you must think bigger than yourselves, because if not you, then who? And I sat there and I'm like, oh, holy moly, he's right. He's right. Here we sit. I think about that for you all right now. Here you sit in this honors college, in this opportunity at Grand Valley State University. For me, with my group of my cohort, we were a little bit older. A lot of people kind of in their, late 20s, 30s, 40s. Here we sit, right? This group of people who already have an opportunity to have influence in one of the most kind of prosperous countries in the world. If not us, if who's going to tackle these tough issues? If not us, then who? And it was in that prompt that kind of gave voice to and meaning to something that was already in my mind. I am called to serve. If you all are thinking about leadership, or leadership is important to you, or you've had an opportunity to lead in all sorts of aspects in your life already, each of you as leaders, that's what we do, right? We serve. But what that prompt created kind of in me was a call to define it. What is that impact that I want to make? What does it truly mean to maximize the opportunity that I have as a leader? And it challenged me in my own thinking kind of through that. So I want to just kind of throw that out there to you all when I think about, and especially for you, the impact that we want to make is bigger than ourselves. We're called to make an impact bigger than ourselves. That's what we do as leaders. It's what you all do. I know that you all are thinking about being part of something bigger, positively impacting the world. I talk a ton at OST about our job is to positively impact the world. I use my leadership in business. That's the role that I have and the platform that I have. But how am I thinking differently about what specifically I want? So I thought I would just share with you all, when I think about this, if not us, then who? If not you, then who? Meredith Bronk, right? As Leo challenged me. Kind of 3 thoughts and lessons that I've had and how that has shaped where I was back in 2014 and where I am right now today. And the first thing that I'll share with you is it really got me thinking about, what do I actually stand for? What are the unique gifts and talents that I have, that I've been given, that I have, that I can use for that good? How do I identify those? Because they're different than the leader next to me. My gifts and talents are a little different than Rosalynn's, even though we're both women leaders in this community. What is uniquely mine, and how am I going to put a handle on that? And it was a really, really interesting, when I think about that, I'll share a quick story with you. I am a servant-minded leader, and I get really great feedback because I'm naturally compassionate and naturally empathetic, and I want to do right and do good. And I believe that every person that I come into contact with, I want to leave that and them better off. That's just kind of who I stand for. So last summer, when the incident with George Floyd happened, I remember talking to a friend of mine and just toiling as a leader. What does this mean for me as I lead this business, as I lead this community, as I lead right now? I feel like I have to do something. I have to use my voice. And I was like, I'm going to go run for governor or something. I was telling my friend, and she kind of laughed at me because I'm not in public service. Thank you, Rosalynn, but that's not my. And what she said to me in that moment was, how about you let your tree grow right where your feet are planted? And I'm going to keep my feet planted where my feet are, and I'm going to have my tree grow and use the influence that I have. And together, stay in where we're standing, but learning and growing, we can create more shade. You don't have to come over to where I'm planted, and I don't have to come over to where you're planted. Use the platform that you have, use the gifts that you have, use the talents that you have, and just embrace them. And I was like, all right, I'll slow down just a little. I hear you. I hear you. But it caused me to really think about, what do I have the opportunity to do, and the opportunity and influence that I have right now? What is uniquely mine? And how do I want to leverage what is uniquely mine to make this positive impact on the world? Where is that at? So that's one, maybe kind of one lesson. And I keep getting to relearn this also, by the way, because when I first became president and CEO of OST, I'll never forget it. It was one of my first times out. And I had been COO. I was like really internally focused on us and our culture. And I'm going out to an event where I'm representing OST, and I was in a panel discussion with local technology leaders. And my marketing person said to me as I was getting ready to leave, he said, okay, you're ready for the panel? And I'm like, yep. And he said, you know, you're going to be the only woman on the panel, right? And I was like, yep, because that's just kind of the world that I'm in. And then he said, you know how you'd answer a question if you got asked about being the woman leader in technology, right? And I was like, nope, I wasn't prepared for that 6 years ago. And in that moment, I thought, I'm a leader who happens to be a woman. Like, I've grown up in this business, and I am a leader, and I am a woman. I'm also left-handed, but nobody asks me that. And what I realized in that moment again, and what I came to realize probably in about the following 3 or 4 months, didn't take me too long, is that I have an opportunity as a woman leader in technology to stand up and proclaim, I am a woman leader of technology. And you can't be what you can't see, that I have an opportunity to represent, that I can do that because of who I am in this place where I'm at right now. That's my platform. How am I using this platform that I have in order to make that impact? So that first thing, that first lesson, and again, I've relearned it 3 or 4 times over the past few years when I think about Leo challenging us in that moment, that how am I using this thing that is uniquely mine, this platform that is uniquely mine, this mindset that I have that is uniquely mine. And each of you, I will tell you, have something that is uniquely yours, whether it's your influence, your background, your experience, your passion, whatever that is. And as you start and as you think about that, honing in on and really getting true to what you are uniquely called and capable to do is the way that you have a path to positively impacting the world. So item number 1, figure out what you stand for, find out what your gift is, and really try to embrace it. Item number 2, and it kind of builds off of that, is whatever that is that you see in yourself, whatever it is that you think that you want to kind of cull out of you, you have to live that way in your entire life. I'm not one person as a CEO and somebody else as a softball coach and somebody else as a wife and a mom. I am a complete human being in everything that I do. And so one of the things that I talk about is you build muscle memory with how you show up. And I coached softball for a long time. My girls are long past playing now, but I coached softball for a long time. And I remember there was this one game, and I had this pitcher. It was a 10-year-old, like a 10U team. And I had this pitcher who wasn't very good, but she was the only one that I had because our other girl got hurt. And she was pitching, and it was 10-year-olds, right? So she wasn't pitching very fast, but she was pitching. And she hit this one batter like 3 times in a row who kept coming around. And the dad of the girl that she hit stands up behind the fence and starts throwing a fit. Get her out of here. And I was like, and I was at the dugout, and my little 10-year-old girl turned and looked at me, and she pulled the ball out and she said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I come out of the dugout and I walk back up there to the pitching mound, and I looked at her and I said, no, you're going to do this. You're going to let him decide whether or not you're done pitching. He's not going to, that's not going to happen. You're going to keep throwing. You're going to do your best. You're going to keep throwing. And you might hit another girl. That's okay. You're going to keep going. And then I walked up to that dad and I said, that's a 10-year-old girl out there and she's doing the best as she can. And I walked back to my dugout because I learned as a leader, whether I'm a CEO or I'm a coach to a 10-year-old girl, I stand up for the people who are part of my team, and I expect respect for the people who are part of my team. Now, if I want to show up that way as a CEO and be honoring and respectful, but the minute I get out on the softball field, I start acting like an idiot, right? Then I'm not flexing that muscle. I'm not acting in a way that actually honors what I say I'm trying to do in my whole being. That is a really, really hard thing to do, I think, especially as you're testing some things out. Like, and you're learning kind of what is that natural voice and what does that look like for you to kind of show up. Obviously, when you're with some friends on the weekend versus, at work, that you have to also know your audience. But at the same time, you have to be willing to commit to showing up in a way that lets you learn and grow in those things that you want to do when you are your best self. Those are opportunities that you don't get very often. And when you start to deviate, people notice, and it erodes trust. So there is this opportunity that you have. I think about it even driving down the road. I'm like, if I'm driving like an idiot and then somebody goes, oh, wait, I saw you driving down the road. And I was like, uh-oh, I proclaim to be this nice and empathetic and friendly unless you're trying to cut me off. Like, it doesn't work that way. It just becomes, you have to show up and you make mistakes. And so you have to demonstrate it consistently in your life. That's my item number 2 for you when I think about what I've learned. And when you deviate, because you will, you have to own it. You have to admit it. You have to, because if you deviate with people who know you, they'll know you deviated and they'll wonder if you know you deviated. So for me, I am a glass half full. I am like showing up, giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. That's just generally how I am. That's just kind of how I usually show up. And sometimes I have a bad day. And if I don't say to somebody, I'm having a bad day, my word is crabby. Ask anybody who works with me and they'll know. I'll be like, hey, Mary, do you have a minute? Somebody walks in my office. I go, sure. But I'm just warning you, I'm crabby. And they're like, okay, I'll come back. But if I don't say that to them and they walk into my office and I'm crabby and I shut their idea down, not because it's a bad idea, because I'm having a bad day, then they'll walk out of my office and they'll be like, she didn't like that idea. I wonder what's wrong. It must be a horrible idea. I don't know if I'm going to bring my next idea to her because what if she doesn't like it? Like, I have to own that. So your opportunity maybe as you start to think about how you flex these muscles and the muscles that you're trying to build, can you build them in a way that you can use them consistently regardless of the situation that you're in? That's maybe part of this. If not you, then who? If you're out to make a positive impact on the world in the long run, if you're out to do something greater than what you alone can do and contribute to, what does it mean for it to be fully integrated in how you show up? That's number 2. And my lesson number 3 that I've learned in my if not me, then who, the lesson number 3 that I've learned as from a leadership perspective is it is all about being effective as a leader. And what does that mean? What that means is that there are different ways that you have to interact. in order to be effective and influential in different circles. And y'all likely already know this, right? The way that you interact with a professor is probably going to be different than a way that you interact with somebody maybe who's on a team with you, and probably different than the way that you interact with your roommates, right? You show up in different ways. But your opportunity, if you truly want to make an impact and you're thinking about how to maximize this leadership potential that you have to have a lens of, am I being effective? How do I need to show up in a way that is effective for what I'm trying to accomplish? And I was having a conversation just last week with somebody who works at OST. And I have a very open door policy. We have about 300 employees at OST, but my door is always open. And I hear a lot of things from a lot of people, which I really like mostly anyway. I really appreciate. And I was having a conversation with a guy who works for somebody who works for me about somebody who works for them. So this is like an individual contributor in our organization. And he has some really great ideas. He's very insightful, and they're critical. They're criticisms. Like, he sees some things that we are messing up right now. And when somebody objectively says and points them out to me, I'm like, you're right. We're doing that. I'm embarrassed. He's embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. We shouldn't be acting that way. But this guy, I'll call him Brian. That's not his name, but Brian, who has these ideas and these observations, wants to raise up these insights that he has. And he's a jerk about it. So he comes storming in the door, voice as loud as he can get it, and we can't hear you. I can't hear you because you're raising your voice. I can't hear you because you're not asking me any questions about what do I think and what are we already trying to do? And is this new information? You're making all these assumptions. I can't hear you. So it's not that his idea isn't a good idea. It's that his way of communication is totally ineffective. And if what he really wants to get at is changed behavior, which I believe that is what's in his heart, the way he's going about it is not effective. So I talk to leaders a ton about being effective. And it's an interesting balance between being effective and being authentic. Sometimes people feel like you have to be unauthentic to be effective with somebody. You have to fake it to be effective with somebody. I don't think that that's true. I think that there's a way that you can stay authentic to who you are and what you stand for. But when you enter into a conversation that says, my goal is to get the outcome that I'm trying to get, my goal is to be as effective as I can possibly be as I enter into this conversation, then I approach it in a way that says, how am I driving to this outcome? How am I thinking about what I'm trying to drive? Not just that I'm right, darn it, and you need to hear me, therefore I'm going to say whatever I need to say at whatever level I need to say it. But that what I'm really driving for is an outcome. And I'll tell you this story, and then we'll get to some Q&A if some folks have some questions, but I'll tell you this kind of final story for me when I became CEO. I became president and CEO of OST. And I mentioned Dan Beam. Dan was my mentor for 17 years. He was our founding. We're not a family business, but we kind of were. He was a little like a dad to me. He was transitioning out. He was still on our board. So I had this kind of legacy responsibility to Dan. And Dan is a gregarious leader. He was our sales guy. He was crazy idea guy. And I'm the COO. Like, I get stuff done and I understand people. And like, that was my role. And Dan retires and I take over on April 1st, 6 years ago. And I wake up on April 1st and I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? And I wake up on April 2nd thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not qualified to do this job. And I wake up on April 3rd and I'm like, they made a mistake and I'm going to screw everything up that Dan spent the last 17 years building. Like, this went on. This narrative in my mind went on. And in that moment, I was like, I need to be like Dan. No, wait, how do I need to be? How do I need to act? I need to be fun. And I tried to be fun and people looked at me like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Because I wasn't being effective. I wasn't an effective leader at all. And it took me like 4 or 5 months. And I had a decision to make. And it was about a person. I needed to fire somebody because they were a really good salesperson, but they were a horrible culture fit. And they were a cancer in our culture. And I knew I needed to do it. And I was talking to somebody who had then kind of stepped in and was a bit of a mentor and stuff to me and was also on our board. Her name was Liz. And I was talking to Liz and I said, I need to fire this guy. And his name is Brian, by the way, but we'll call him Joe. I had to fire Joe. And I said, I have to fire him. And she said, okay, is it the right thing to do for the business? And I said, it is, but Dan won't think so. And in that moment, she said to me, I'll never forget it because I was standing in Nashville, Tennessee at my parents' house. She said, it's not Dan's decision to make anymore. It's yours. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's right. She's right. This is my decision. And what in the world have I been doing the last 6 months? So I went back to my leadership team and I was like, all right, y'all, I have not been a good leader the last 6 months. My head has been in 100 different places because I didn't know how to show up. I was trying to solve to all of these things except being effective as your CEO and being effective as your leader. I lost my way and I might not be effective doing it the way that I'm comfortable doing it, but there's no way I can be effective if I try to do it some other way. So how can I and do I stand here in a way that says my sole goal is to ensure that I drive OST forward? And I'll tell you, as I stand here today, 6 years ago, I took over the business. We had about 120 people. It took us 17 years to get to 120. Today, we're over 300. We set out to change our business model and grow our services business. In the last 4 years, it's grown by 45%. We're doing a really, really, really good job. And I couldn't have done that if I wasn't standing firmly in what I know I'm capable of, and in a way that my sole responsibility is to be as effective as I can possibly be. And that meant some tough conversations with Dan, by the way, during the course of his board tenureship. But I knew that I had to have a different level of conversation and a different level of engagement, because effective as a COO and effective as a CEO looks different. And I had no idea. And it wasn't until I thought through that lens and continue to put things through that lens that say, that's my role, my responsibility. How am I being effective as a leader? And I teach my leaders that now. When they get off course and they get a crazy idea or they get a wild hair, it's like, what do you need to do to be effective? What do you need? What are you trying to accomplish? How do you accomplish that? I don't care about all your, how do you accomplish that? So what do you stand for? What's your unique gift, platform, capability, experience, something that is uniquely yours that you know that you have the possibility to stand on? Are you doing something every day in all facets of your life that reinforce that? And are you thinking about it in the term of, am I being effective? Not just for what I stand for, but for what I'm trying to accomplish and whatever it is and how I execute. Those are my top three things that I've learned.